My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 44 years old, and until last week, I thought I understood exactly how much pain a parent could survive. I was wrong. Sometimes the person who can hurt you the most isn't an enemy. It's the child you would die for without hesitation. I've been divorced from my ex-husband, Ethan Bennett, for 8 years. We have one daughter together, Madison, who's 16 now. For most of those 8 years, I raised her alone. Ethan moved across the country after the divorce. He built a new life, chased new opportunities, and settled into a world that somehow never seemed to include his daughter. He called occasionally, visited when it was convenient, remembered birthdays most years. But the everyday stuff, that was me. School projects, doctor appointments, nightmares, heartbreaks, everything. Me older sister, Caroline, used to joke that I wasn't just a mother. I was an entire emergency response team. And honestly, she wasn't wrong. Madison and I had always been close. Not perfect, but close. Until Jason Carter entered her life, 17 years old. A history of shoplifting, skipping classes, constant trouble. The kind of boy who always had an excuse and somehow made everyone else responsible for his mistakes. I never liked him. Not because I was trying to ruin my daughter's happiness, because I recognized danger when I saw it. Last Friday, Madison wanted to attend another party with Jason. I said no. Nothing dramatic, just no, like any parent would. She exploded, screaming, crying, telling me I ruined everything, telling me I didn't understand her. I stayed calm, because teenage emotions don't scare me anymore. But then she looked directly at me and said words I don't think I'll ever completely forget. I wish you were dead. Everything inside me froze. Before I could even process that, she continued, Dad's girlfriend, Vanessa, understands me more than you do. She's more of a parent than you'll ever be. Vanessa, a woman who had met Madison exactly 3 times. A woman who still thought Madison loved unicorn pajamas and strawberry milk because Ethan apparently described our daughter using memories from when she was 8. Madison kept screaming, I can't wait until I'm 18 and can finally live with Dad and Vanessa. I simply looked at her. Didn't yell, didn't cry, didn't defend myself. I just nodded. Sweetheart. She stomped upstairs, probably expecting me to follow her, apologize, beg her to talk, like I always had before. But something inside me quietly broke. Not in anger, not even in resentment. It felt more like a light switch turning off. If my daughter wanted me gone, maybe she should experience exactly what that looked like. Starting Saturday morning, I stopped existing. Dead mothers don't wake their children for school. Dead mothers don't cook breakfast. Dead mothers don't remind teenagers to bring their homework. There was food in the refrigerator. She simply had to prepare it herself. Dead mothers don't drive people around. So Madison took the bus. Dead mothers don't hand out spending money. Dead mothers don't renew subscriptions. Dead mothers don't pay unlimited phone plans. At first she laughed. Mom. Seriously. No answer. Mom. Stop being weird. Nothing. By Saturday evening, she was annoyed. By Sunday, she was angry. By Monday morning, she was scared. Meanwhile, my phone was overflowing with calls from Ethan. Apparently Madison had called him crying. But dead mothers don't answer phones. Was I petty? Probably. Was I exhausted after carrying everything for 8 years while being told I wasn't enough? Absolutely. By Tuesday, Madison attempted a new strategy. She brought Jason into my house. Apparently they assumed I would have to acknowledge him. I walked right past both of them, made myself lunch, returned to my office. Through the walls I heard Madison explaining to him that I had lost my mind. Then Jason knocked on my office door. Mrs. Bennett, you're acting immature. I didn't even raise my eyes from my laptop. The silence clearly unsettled him more than shouting ever could. That afternoon, Caroline arrived. My sister knew everything. She had watched me survive the divorce, watched me work 2 jobs, watched me cry after Madison went to sleep, She stepped inside and found Madison miserable on the couch. Caroline smiled sweetly. "Oh, honey." "Why?" The long face. "I thought you'd be thrilled now that your mother is dead to you." Madison burst into tears. "Aunt Caroline, please make her stop." My sister simply blinked. "Make who stop? I don't see anyone hurting you." Madison ran upstairs sobbing. A few seconds later, Caroline walked into the kitchen and hugged me. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. For the first time in years, someone was taking my side. That evening we sat together. I drank coffee. She drank wine. And she updated me on Ethan's messages. Apparently, Vanessa had convinced him that I was emotionally abusing our daughter. According to them, they were considering legal options. Caroline nearly choked on her wine. Maybe Ethan should try parenting before threatening lawsuits. I almost smiled. Then, another little consequence arrived. Madison's phone stopped working. Because the account was under my name, autopay failed, and I quietly canceled the service. I overheard her using the landline to call her best friend. "Lily, I didn't mean it like that," she cried. Too late. Some words don't disappear once they're spoken. And although Madison didn't know it yet, the biggest storm was still coming. By Wednesday morning, the cracks in Madison's carefully constructed world had started showing. For years, she'd lived with invisible safety nets. I woke her up every morning. I reminded her about tests. I packed emergency snacks into her backpack. I knew when assignments were due before she did. The funny thing about love is that when it's done properly, people stop noticing it. They mistake consistency for something automatic, something guaranteed, something that will always be there. At 8:45 that morning, Madison came racing downstairs in a panic. School started at 8. She was already late. I sat at the kitchen table drinking coffee and reading articles on my tablet. "Mom." "Nothing." "Mom, why didn't you wake me up? I have a chemistry exam today." I kept reading. Her voice became frantic. "This isn't funny anymore." Still, nothing. She actually stepped directly in front of me and waved her hands. I simply shifted my tablet and continued reading. She stood there for several seconds. Then, she burst into tears and ran upstairs. 20 minutes later, she returned. Still crying. "Dad says if you don't drive me right now, he's calling his lawyer." That almost made me laugh. Ethan hadn't paid child support in 2 years. But apparently lawyers only mattered when parenting became inconvenient. Madison ended up walking to school. 1.5 miles. Safe neighborhood. No danger. Just inconvenience. From my window, I watched her stomp down the driveway. I hated seeing her upset. But another part of me needed her to understand. Love wasn't invisible magic. Someone had always been carrying the weight. Around noon, the school called. I didn't answer. The voicemail informed me that Madison's cafeteria account was empty. Normally, I reloaded it every Monday. The lunch lady had covered her meal this time, but the balance needed attention. Then chaos arrived. At exactly 3 o'clock, a black SUV pulled into my driveway. Ethan and Vanessa. I hadn't seen either of them in almost a year. Ethan had changed. Designer clothes, expensive sunglasses, perfect haircut. The appearance of a man who had plenty of time to focus on himself. Vanessa looked like she had stepped straight out of a social media advertisement. Perfect makeup, perfect smile, perfect life. At least from the outside. Claire opened the door. I could clearly hear Ethan pounding. "We need to talk about what you're doing to our daughter." I sat in the living room, visible through the window, reading a novel. Vanessa stepped closer. "Claire, please, be reasonable." I turned another page. Ethan's voice grew louder. "Stop acting like a child." Another page. 45 minutes passed. Demanding turned into pleading. Pleading turned into threats. Then came desperation. At one point, Vanessa actually suggested calling the police. Apparently silence had become a criminal offense. When Madison arrived home from school after walking again, she froze. Her eyes widened. "Dad." Ethan rushed toward her dramatically. "Baby girl. I'm here." We're fixing this. The expression on her face surprised me. It wasn't joy. It wasn't relief. It looked almost like confusion, as though she hadn't actually expected him to show up. She glanced through the window and saw me calmly reading. "Mom. Please," she whispered. "I'm sorry. I didn't move." Vanessa wrapped an arm around her. "Sweetheart. Pack a bag. You're coming with us." Madison hesitated. "There are some things you don't understand. We'll handle everything," Ethan interrupted confidently. But there was something he didn't know. Something Madison had hidden from him. She had been skipping classes with Jason. Sneaking out, ignoring assignments. Her grades had dropped so badly that she had been placed on academic probation. One more unexcused absence, and she could face expulsion. She tried explaining. "Dad, I can't miss school. We know people," Ethan said proudly. Vanessa nodded as if she personally controlled the education system. "Everything will be fine." Madison looked back toward the house. Toward me, for just a second. I thought she wanted me to stop them. But I stayed seated. Because this time, I couldn't rescue everyone. They left. The house became quiet. About an hour later, Caroline arrived, carrying Chinese takeout and 2 bottles of wine. She dropped onto the couch and sighed. "They won't survive 48 hours. I raised an eyebrow. "You sound confident." "Please," she said. "Your ex-husband can barely handle 1 weekend every 6 months. And Vanessa only likes teenagers when they're posing for pictures." I almost smiled. Caroline continued. "They're living in a fantasy. Madison is about to discover reality." We ate quietly, for the first time in years. The house felt strangely peaceful, but underneath that peace was guilt. Because no matter what she'd said, Madison was still my daughter. I still knew exactly how she liked her coffee. Exactly which stuffed animal she secretly kept hidden in her closet. Exactly how thunderstorms made her anxious. Exactly how she pretended not to cry during sad movies. I wondered whether she had eaten dinner, whether she'd remembered her anxiety medication, whether she'd packed her chemistry notes. Because being hurt doesn't stop you from being a mother. It only makes loving more painful. The next morning, Caroline called before 7. Her voice sounded amused. "Guess how long they lasted?" I sat upright. "Already? 18 hours. Apparently, Ethan and Vanessa had spent the entire night arguing. Madison had a panic attack during a thunderstorm. Neither of them knew what to do. Ethan forgot her medication. Vanessa accidentally ordered food she was allergic to. And sometime around 3 in the morning, the truth began leaking out. Ethan didn't know what grade she was in. He didn't know her favorite subject. Didn't know she hated mushrooms. Didn't know she'd broken up with her best friend last year. Didn't know she still slept with music on, because silence made her anxious. And according to Caroline, Madison had started crying. Not because she missed her father, not because she hated me, but because she suddenly realized how much I had always known. By 7:30 that morning, another car pulled into my driveway. And this time, they weren't here to rescue anyone. They were bringing my daughter home. I was making breakfast for one when I heard the car door slam outside. Eggs, bacon, 1 plate. Same routine I'd followed for almost a week. Then I heard the front door open. Apparently, Ethan still had an old emergency key. He walked in first. Vanessa followed behind him. And Madison came last. My daughter looked exhausted. Her eyes were swollen. Her hair was messy. She looked like she hadn't slept. Ethan walked into the kitchen with the confidence of someone who still believed he was in control. "Claire, this ends now," he announced. "Madison has something to say." I placed my breakfast on the table and sat down. No reaction. No words. Nothing. Madison swallowed hard. "Mom?" Her voice cracked. "I'm sorry." I continued eating. Vanessa stepped forward. "Claire, enough is enough." "She's apologizing?" Still nothing. Then Ethan made a mistake. He put a hand on Madison's shoulder and said softly, "See, Daddy's helping fix everything." And suddenly my daughter exploded. Not at me. At him. "Stop saying that." The entire room froze. Madison stepped away from his hand. "You're not fixing anything." Ethan blinked in surprise. Sweetheart. No. Tears poured down her cheeks. You don't know me. Vanessa tried to intervene. Madison. Your father. And you're not my mother. She practically shouted it. The silence afterward was deafening. Ethan's face slowly reddened. Vanessa looked stunned. But Madison wasn't finished. You dragged me into that horrible hotel while you two fought all night. She pointed at Ethan. You didn't know I had a chemistry exam. Then she pointed at Vanessa. You didn't know I have panic attacks during thunderstorms. Another tear rolled down her cheek. Neither of you remembered my allergy. She looked broken. Mom remembers everything. For the first time since they entered the house. I felt my hands trembling, but I stayed silent. Ethan tried again. Madison. We're trying our best. Her laugh was bitter. Your best. She looked directly at him. You left when I was 8. The words hit him like a slap. You call once a month when you remember. Madison. Last year you forgot my birthday until 2 weeks later. Vanessa looked uncomfortable. Clearly. This wasn't the version of Ethan she'd been hearing. Then Madison reached into her backpack. She pulled out several folded pages. Her hands shook so badly that one of them almost slipped. I wrote this last night. She looked at me. I didn't know if you'd read it. My chest tightened. She slowly unfolded the pages. Mom. I know dead people can't read letters. Her voice broke immediately. But I need to tell you I'm sorry. Tears streamed down her face. I was angry because of Jason, and because you wouldn't let me go to the party. I wanted to hurt you. So I chose the worst thing I could think of. She paused to wipe her eyes. You're strict. You worry too much. You still cut the crust off my sandwiches even though I'm 16. A tiny laugh escaped her through the tears. But you've always been there. The kitchen became completely silent. When I got my first period and was embarrassed, you bought every brand in the store because you didn't know which one I'd need. When I failed my driver's test, you took me for ice cream. When Jason made me cry last month, you stayed awake until midnight, making macaroni and cheese. Then she looked at Ethan. Do you know what Dad's girlfriend gave me for Christmas? Vanessa blinked. A necklace. Madison laughed bitterly. No. A gift card to a store for 12-year-olds. She looked back at me. Mom knows my favorite show. Mom knows I secretly hate pickles. Mom knows I need 2 creams in my coffee. Mom knows me. Her voice collapsed into sobs, and I told her I wished she was dead. By then, Ethan looked like someone had punched him. Vanessa avoided everyone's eyes. But the biggest shock came next. Madison turned toward them. Please leave. Ethan stared. What? This is my home. She pointed toward the front door. You should go. Vanessa stepped forward carefully. Sweetheart. Let's calm down. No. Madison wiped her tears. You both live in your perfect condo. The one with HOA, rules that don't even allow children to stay longer than 2 weeks. Vanessa's expression changed immediately. She looked at Ethan. What? Apparently she hadn't known I told Madison about that. Ethan's mouth opened and closed. That's not. It is. Madison snapped. You never planned for me to live with you. Nobody spoke. Finally. Ethan grabbed his keys. Vanessa quietly picked up her purse. Neither of them argued. Neither of them fought. They simply left. The front door closed. And suddenly, the house became silent again. Madison stood in the kitchen shaking. I finished my breakfast. Washed my plate. Put it away. Then, for the first time in 6 days, I looked directly at my daughter. Really looked at her. Her face crumpled instantly. Mom. I spoke. Only 4 words. Don't forget school today. That was all. But the relief that flooded her face almost broke me. She burst into tears and threw her arms around me. I didn't hug her back. Not yet. But I didn't push her away either. I know I have to earn your trust again. She whispered. I finally spoke again. We'll see. And although neither of us knew it yet, the hardest part wasn't surviving what happened. It was learning how to live afterward. The weekend that followed felt strangely quiet. Not awkward. Not tense. Just different. Saturday morning. I woke up expecting my usual routine. Instead, I walked downstairs and found smoke coming from the kitchen. For one horrifying second, I thought the house was on fire. Then I saw Madison standing over the stove with a spatula. Burned eggs. Soggy toast. A disaster. She looked absolutely mortified. "I tried," she said softly. I stared at the plate, then at her. "I can see that." Her shoulders relaxed slightly. She smiled nervously. I remembered no pickles. That almost made me laugh. Almost. Throughout the weekend, she kept trying. She did laundry, cleaned her room, finished homework without being asked, and for the first time in months, Jason's name never came up. But the biggest surprise came Saturday night. Caroline called. She sounded so amused. She could barely speak. "You're going to love this." Apparently, Ethan had called her in tears. Not because of Madison. Not because of me. Because Vanessa had broken up with him, according to Caroline. Spending one night watching him fail, as a parent, had completely changed how she saw him. She hadn't signed up to raise a teenager. She didn't want drama. And she certainly didn't want to compete with the consequences of choices Ethan had made years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman who tried playing mother to a child she'd barely known suddenly discovered that parenting wasn't a cute accessory. Ethan blamed me. Of course, according to him, I had ruined his relationship. Caroline laughed so hard during the phone call that she spilled wine all over her couch. Sunday was peaceful. Madison and I didn't talk much. We simply existed together. She did homework at the kitchen table. I paid bills beside her. At one point, she quietly placed a coffee mug beside me. 2 creams, exactly the way I liked it. After dinner, she surprised me again. "The Office?" she asked. I raised an eyebrow. "You hate that show." She looked embarrassed. "No. I pretend to hate it." We watched 3 episodes together. Not because everything was fixed, but because healing doesn't happen in grand speeches. Sometimes it happens in silence. Monday morning. I was working from home when I heard a loud car pull into the driveway. I glanced outside. Jason. My stomach dropped. Madison came downstairs and immediately panicked. I didn't invite him. She looked genuinely frightened. "I swear." "Mom." I believed her. Through the window, I watched her step outside. At first, the conversation seemed normal. Then his body language changed. He started pointing, getting closer. She backed away, shaking her head. Then he grabbed her arm. I don't remember deciding to move. One second I was inside. The next I was outside. "Take your hand off my daughter." Jason froze. Madison looked shocked, then relieved. The boy puffed up immediately. "Oh. Now, she matters again." I stepped between them. "And yet you're standing on my property grabbing her after she told you no." Madison's eyes filled with tears. Jason sneered. "She's been telling everyone you're crazy." I looked directly at him. "And you're a 17-year-old, with a criminal record and attendance problems, who thinks intimidation is love." He stiffened. "You don't know me." "No," I answered calmly, "but I know enough." I turned to Madison. "Do you want him here?" She shook her head immediately. "No." Then, she started crying. "I broke up with him last week. He won't leave me alone." Everything suddenly made sense. Jason looked furious. "Madison. Come on." "No." For the first time since I'd met him, my daughter stood tall. I was stupid. But I'm done. Jason slammed his car door and sped away. The sound of his ridiculous exhaust faded into the distance. Then Madison collapsed into tears. Not pretty tears. Ugly. Exhausted tears. "I'm sorry." "Mom?" She couldn't stop crying. "I'm so sorry." I looked at her. Really looked at her. "Yeah," I said honestly. "You hurt me." She laughed through tears. "You're supposed to say it's okay." "It's not okay." Her expression fell. Then I gently touched her shoulder. "But we're going to work through it." She wrapped her arms around me again. This time, I hugged her back. And suddenly, both of us were crying. Years of exhaustion, fear, anger, love, everything poured out at once. Later that afternoon, over coffee, she asked quietly. What happens now? Now, I said. You're grounded for 2 weeks. Her mouth opened. Then she nodded. Fair. No party. No friends over. No phone? She nodded again. Then I added, and you're writing apology letters to Aunt Caroline for putting her in the middle? To your father for embarrassing him in front of Vanessa, even though he deserved some of it, and one to yourself? She blinked. Myself. I nodded. For accepting a boyfriend who treated you like property? Her eyes immediately filled with tears again. What about you? She whispered. Don't I owe you a letter too? I smiled sadly. No. You owe me something better. The truth. Always. Even when you're angry. Even when you think I'm ruining your life? Tell me the truth. But never wish me dead again. She nodded immediately. I promise. I believed her. As I sat at my desk later that afternoon, she brought me lunch. Turkey and Swiss. No pickles. Exactly how I liked it. My phone buzzed again. Ethan. 6 missed calls. I ignored them. A few minutes later, Caroline sent a message. Mother of the Year. Wine tonight. I laughed for the first time in what felt like forever. Am I a perfect parent? Absolutely not. I simply reached my breaking point. And somehow, by stepping back, I forced my daughter to see everything I'd quietly been doing all along. Madison still has a lot to prove. And so do I. We're learning together. We're making mistakes together. But we're trying. And for now, that's enough. Because despite everything that happened, my daughter knows something she almost forgot. Her mother is still here. And she's very much alive.